Call this meeting of the Lancaster County Planning Commission to order.
Thank you.
I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Cynthia Hatfield, Tommy Dabney, Sheila Henson,
Here.
Ben Levine,
Here.
Jim Burnett,
Here.
Rosa Sansberry,
Here.
and Charles D.
Here. Let the record show that a quorum of Lancaster County Planning Commission is present in the meeting. And if the clerk would bring those documents up from the podium. I'll continue while she's doing that. We'll state that public notice of this meeting, including the meeting agenda, has been posted the required length of time in the lobby of the County Administration Building and on the county website, and that the news media was informed of the time and place of the meeting. I want to welcome each of you for attendance in your Planning Commission meeting. We are a group of volunteers that try to do our best to follow the rules and regulations as set forth in the UDO and in the rules of the county and the state. Commissioners, you have before you the agenda for this afternoon's meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
I have a motion from Mr. Barnett to approve,
A second.
and a second from Ms. Henson. All in favor? Let it be known the vote is unanimous. Now comes time for citizens' comments. Let me get these straight. And I don't have any citizens' comments, is that correct? We will continue on.
Mr. Chairman, I believe in light of the coronavirus week, the council has suspended citizen comments from board agendas.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burns. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the April 21, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. Do I hear any changes, deletions, additions, or a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I will be abstaining from the votes since I was not here for the meeting last month.
Mr. Levine will abstain. He was not in the meeting. Do I hear a motion?
I move for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett.
A second.
All in favor? The vote is to approve, a vote of 4-0 with 1 abstention. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Subdivision 019-0380 Walnut Creek. Mr. Teff?
Good evening, Robert Tuft, Lancaster County Planning Department. This is Walnut Creek, major subdivision, case SD-019-0380. The proposal is a major subdivision, preliminary plat for a 67-unit residential subdivision, townhomes. Property is located at the southwest corner of Charlotte Highway and Walnut Creek Parkway. The location map on the screen there, the parcel is highlighted in white. You can see it on there. The property is zoned Plan Development District, PDD 8, the applicant Arjo Harrison Associates, Inc. To kind of give you a better idea just where it is, location photos here on the left there, this is just looking east of the property from 521, whereas on the right, it is directly across 521 from the property. These two images are looking north and south, on the left and the right, along US 521, with the property on the right in the left-hand photo and on the left in the right-hand photo, if that wasn't confusing. This application was originally submitted back March 4th, 2019, with conditional approval granted by staff on May 3rd of that year. However, due to some county oversight, as there was a great deal of flux within the planning department at that time, the item was never brought before the planning commission until this evening. As indicated, this parcel is part of the overall Walnut Creek subdivision, regulated as part of PDD-8, with its master plan approved in 2006. I believe was the last approval on that. The applicant is in the process of amending that PDD master plan from the originally approved commercial usage of this parcel, this 10-acre parcel, to allow for townhomes. We did receive that proposed amendment this afternoon. We have yet to perform any review on that, but it has been submitted. The language within the Plan Development District, Development Agreement, does allow for broad changes to be made to the permitted land uses within the community as a matter of right, so long as the maximum number of units is not exceeded. As we understand it, the 67 townhomes that are proposed would not result in any excess dwellings. This is the plat as proposed, the preliminary plat as proposed. As you can see with Walnut Creek Parkway along the north of the top of the drawing. Two roads there, can't recall the names of the two roads, both cul-de-sac streets coming with the townhomes off of those, and the CSX railway there along the south side of that. As indicated, this is just a vacant 10.1 acre parcel in the southwest corner of 521 Walnut Creek Parkway for 67 townhouse lots. There's about 5.2 acres of open space, a total of 348 acres of open space within the overall Walnut Creek subdivision. Would note a transportation impact analysis was not needed with this project as it did not exceed the established threshold within the UDO. Would also note that staff did receive a number of citizen comments regarding this project. The names on there, those are the names of the individuals we did receive specific emails from in regards to this project. Those have all been provided to you for your consideration at this time. And staff is recommending approval of this request subject to the following conditions. First being the amendment of the master plan is actually completed to change the intended use of the subject property from commercial to townhomes. And second, to address any of the outstanding comments that staff has had on this project previously. With that, I'll be able to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Levine?
What governs a PDD is usually the PDD ordinance itself and the master plan, correct?
Correct.
I guess I just find, I mean, I guess you did receive it today, but I just kind of find it odd that we would consider approving a plan for something before the master plan has even really necessarily been updated. Is that a typical order in which you would do things?
No, I wouldn't say that it was typical. I'd say at this juncture, this ball kind of got rolling on this a year ago. We're trying to get this thing, and they've already submitted in for the civil engineering review on this, and that's when current staff identified that this kind of little blip had occurred on that. So we're already kind of out of a bit of sync as to how this should be done. So we're just trying to get everything on the page and try to kind of keep it as fair as possible for everybody given where we are.
Is the master plan a change? Is that an administrative approval, or does
Yes.
that go through? Okay, it is. It's
Just be done administratively.
Okay. Nothing in the PDD ordinance seems to rule out making a change for this type of.
Pretty specific in its language. I can read the section if you want,
You
but
don't have to read the section. I think it's
it's very open to change that you want to change from commercial to residential. That's a minor change that can be approved at an administrative level. and it's just based upon what the developer may want to do.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes, Ms. Sainsbury?
But y'all haven't read the documents, is that correct?
The one submitted today, no,
Huh.
we've not seen it.
And how many times did y'all request those documents?
I think it's probably about 5 different emails back and forth. They're just wondering what the status was over the last 2-3 months, maybe.
That's good. Let me ask you one other thing. How many medium-density units are in Walnut Creek?
Top of my head, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, so you don't know the exact amount of how many are those in there?
Medium density units? No, off the top of my head, no.
Yeah,
For
okay.
Ms. Sainsbury, just for reference, I think there are approximately 1,500 homes that have been
Right.
built or under construction in Walnut Creek.
Yeah, I understand that, but in that these are going to be maximum density residences, the PDD, there's a number that we cannot go over.
Correct, and my understanding from looking at the figures and all that, we've looked at that, they will still be under, even with these 67 townhomes. Under the maximum established within the PDD.
How do you know that?
We've looked at the numbers of what they have had from preliminary plat approvals, what final plat approvals have been granted, and based upon what those figures are, and adding in these 67 units, it's still less than that maximum figure.
So, but you don't have an exact figure on that?
Off the top of my head, I don't recall it, no. I wouldn't want to give you a figure that wasn't correct.
Right. It asked for it in the.
The applicant, I'm sure, could provide the specific figure. I'm sure he's aware of exactly what that number is.
Thank you.
Anything else? Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Does he have anything he'd like to offer? You would give your name and address for the record.
My name is Patrick Murphy. I live at 1119 Shiloh Bend Trail, Fort Mill, South Carolina. I'm with Arjo Harrison Associates, a civil engineering group who is working on behalf of the developer for this project. Robert did a pretty good job of covering the basics, so I'm here to answer any further questions you guys might have on the project.
Okay. Great. Thank you, sir. Does staff have anything else they'd like to add?
I do. I'd like to say something.
All right.
Is it okay?
Yeah, Ms. Hanson.
And I probably want to talk to the staff about this.
Mr. Taft, if you would come back to the podium.
Whenever, I've read a lot of the letters, and a lot of them were saying, that when they were, first came into this residential area, when they first come in and they bought their home, that they were promised that would stay commercial. When something like that happens, and it is commercial, so that's where it's at, is there nothing in documents or nothing that holds it to that? These people it sound like to me, now I'm just knowing what I'm reading, and I don't live up there. So, and I do believe in looking after people. I do believe in, if we represent Lancaster County people, then that's what we want to do. Whenever you read, I mean, that they were told this is what it was going to be. Is there nothing that Lancaster County has as a standard that this is what they said when they built the community? And then all of a sudden, I mean, I know how I would feel if I bought in a community and I thought it was going to be one thing, and then I lived there 5 years, or I lived there 8 years, or lived there whatever, and it's changed. And I think, well, golly, that's one reason I bought this place, because they were going to do this. How does Lancaster County handle that? Well, I mean, is there no guidelines to say, okay, you're doing this, so you've got to continue doing this, or whatever? I mean, I don't know. I'm asking.
In this instance, we would go back to what the Plan Development District, that ordinance that enabled that, what that established. And it did, with that master plan, established this as commercial. It also established the ability and the ways they would be able to go about changing what's on that master plan. And what was the structure of that ordinance and what was ultimately approved by County Council essentially enabled the developer to, at any time, propose an amendment to change it kind of as they saw fit by market demand.
And this is the same developer that developed it that is changing it now. Is that what you're
There are
saying?
multiple developers within Walnut
Multiple
Creek,
developers.
yes.
And that's okay. That's okay to do that.
By virtue of the
Now,
language that's in the
other words, when somebody
PDD.
comes in here and tells us something, a developer, like the gentleman here, he comes in, he says, I'm gonna do this. And we say, well, that sounds good. Well, we're gonna, we'll go with that. That sounds good. We all vote for it. Then he can go back 6 months later and say, hey, I've changed my mind. I'm gonna do this.
Based on how the language in this PDD was structured a couple decades ago, yes. Now, it's not necessarily the case for every project, but it is the case in this one.
It is the case in that one. So what, should we be more careful in what we pass on something like that? Should we be more specific in making a developer stick to what they say?
What we're doing there, by what you're saying, is delving into conditional zoning, which is not allowed in the state of South Carolina. If a man comes in and rezones a piece of property to put a mobile home on, he changes his mind, puts another house or something out there. I mean, as long as he meets the rules and the codes enforced at that time, he's perfectly legal.
He's still okay. Okay.
We don't,
Mr. Chairman, if I
we
could
can't get into. Yes, sir.
Could I add a few words?
Sure you can, Mr.
Thank you.
Burns.
So just to complement what Mr. Teff said to your questions, I mean, you're asking excellent questions, and unfortunately, Robert and I are getting really good at answering these questions because we've been having conversations with the Walnut Creek homeowners, but as well there's another community in Lancaster County that's kind of going through this kind of issue on a much bigger scale. And so Robert is correct that the language in the original documents affords the developer the right to make these changes. These documents were written in a very developer-friendly manner to give them maximum flexibility, and that was just a circumstance of the times that they were written. This one dates back to the early 2000s, and many others the same way. I will share with you that staff is working with our county attorney and others to craft new tools and techniques to manage master plan communities that will make it, there's always going to be changes. That's just the natural cycle of development for big projects. But to have it be a little bit more balanced system, creating more checks and balances to that, so it's not such a one-sided modification process. So my point is that yes, the original language per what Robert said is correct. It allows these kinds of changes pretty liberally. But going forward, that's going to change.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Welcome.
Give him his answer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if I have a question for the county, attorney, is this the time to ask that? Or?
Yes.
Okay. I just have a question regarding, as things have happened over the last few years in South Carolina with, like quality rural living versus Greenville, and some other things where citizens have banded together to, find that they can be granted standing against some sort of decision. This is not a rezoning. This is, just an approval for a preliminary plat. But is there anything here where, because really, it's hard to say that you can vote against something like this as long as it's following everything that is built out in the ordinance rules and what the ordinance says. But if there was a reason to think that could cause some sort of issue where we could make a decision here that citizens could potentially have standing to try to take to the courts to fight, is that something where if we feel like they might potentially have some sort of position there, that if we were to vote against this, that could be, considered an actual reason for even though the rest of the information we've gotten from the planning department says that, this follows the written ordinance for this PDD.
Okay, Mr. Levine, I'm going to attempt to kind of rephrase that because that had, I think, some constituent parts there. So as I understand your question, if you just bear with me just a moment to break this down. So your question is if, for example, in this instance, there is the ability to approve this preliminary plat because it falls within the current existing structure of the PDD, as that was previously passed in the ordinance, has already been approved by council. But then if your question is there's a decision that is made against that, would that create a right for a citizen or for some other person to bring any type of action as it relates to that?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I'm following you there. When it comes to the decision, in essence, this body, along with all other legislative bodies, does have a legislative immunity because it would be taking actions in good faith as it relates to their decisions in compliance with the existing statutes and the existing law of South Carolina. Now, that does not mean that an aggrieved person could not go out, find their own attorney, find a $150 filing fee, and march their way into court and do whatever it is. And an ultimate opinion would have to be on a case-by-case basis. But as it sits here this evening, if your question is if you have concerns about your vote going one way or the other, putting you in a particular position where you may find yourself liable, the answer to that question would be no. There's multiple immunities available to you, public duty rule, several other statutory and legal positions that would protect any member of this commission as it relates to their vote. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, sir. That does.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Thank you, sir. Okay. At this time, we will consider ourselves in public hearing on SD 019-0380 Walnut Creek. When your name is called, please come forward. State your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes on that clock. Just make your comments to the Planning Commission. You make your comments to the Planning Commission and not to the audience, and not to any one individual. Allison Marshall.
Hello, my name is Allison Marshall. I live at 1088 Crawford Drive in Walnut Creek. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, my family and I moved into Walnut Creek in June of 2015. Walnut Creek was an easy choice for us to choose to be our new home due to the location, amenities, and potential for future growth, as well as that small town feel. When shopping for our home, we were informed of the future growth plan for our community, including the commercial area of restaurants and shops at the 521 entrance. And it's been exciting to watch that to come to fruition for the Grove and Bridge Mill. And I was looking forward to what the future would hold for Walnut Creek. We awaited signage until 1 month ago when we saw the signage saying that there was a boarding signage for a proposed subdivision. I called and was told of the request to rezone the commercial property from commercial to residential, excuse me, sorry. So to request to rezone the property from commercial to residential with the addition of a major subdivision of 67 townhomes units. With an average of 3 people per home, that will add an additional 200 more people to our already strained amenities, with 134 potential additional cars trying to get in and out of the development, along with school buses, turning both left to the new high school and elementary school and right to the middle and elementary schools. The potential danger for motor vehicle, pedestrian, bicycle incidents will be undeniable due to the increase in numbers, as well as this area is so far away from all the other amenities in the neighborhood. In the past 5 years, we've seen growth that the amenities cannot withstand due to our numbers. The pool is beyond ability to maintain healthy chemical levels, leading to maintenance issues and pool closures. The fitness center has minimal machines with multiple breakdowns, and our roads are getting destroyed with the continuous construction equipment. Our middle school children are learning in schools and mobiles, and we are at 100% plus capacity. Even with the new Indian High School scheduled to open in fall of 2020 at some point due to construction delays, the old Indian High School will sit empty for at least a year before the 7th and 8th graders can move in due to some well-deserved upgrades. There's a major concern for space in our schools over the next 5 years, and if we continue to develop and build, all the schools in District 1 will be beyond capacity. Controlling the growth right now is the best plan. The city of Lancaster has wanted commercial property on that land from the beginning. Don't give up on what you want because developers are trying to do what they do, develop, but at whose expense? The community of Walnut Creek, our community neighbors, and the county of Lancaster. We understand the desire to have more housing in northern Lancaster to allow for overflow from Charlotte, which brings revenue to our county, But I ask you, is it worth the continued damage to our roadways, traffic congestion, strain on our amenities that cannot withstand the numbers already, and the overcrowding to our schools despite the plans that are already in place? I know L-Star has attempted to previously sell the property in the past, but because of the high asking price and there were not a lot of homes in our community at the time, there was not a lot of interest. But that has dramatically changed. We are currently at 1,500 homes and have new townhomes in the new Lennar section already being built that has increased our numbers. We have the 300-plus acre farm across the street from the property in question that is now for sale, and with our neighborhood growth, the
Marshall,
chance
if you could
for
finish
commercial
it up,
interest
please.
is now.
Said if you could finish up.
Yes.
Your time's up.
Since the Lancaster Planning Board has the final decision on this item, I humbly ask you to reconsider this project and further seek with proper signage and promotion to allow small commercial businesses to occupy this property, businesses that will continue to bring the small town feel of Lancaster, as well as job opportunities to our community and community neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Patrick Murphy. Mr. Murphy has passed his statements at this point. So that is all that is signed to speak to this matter, so we will consider ourselves out of public hearing on SD 019-0380 Walnut Creek. Commissioners, you have before you Subdivision 019-0380 Walnut Creek, major subdivision preliminary plat. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for approval for sake of record so we can discuss it.
I have a motion from Mr. Barnett to approve,
I'll second.
and a second from Mr. Levine. Any discussion?
I'll go ahead and open up the floor for discussion. My biggest issue with this is that, you know, like anything else that we were to prove to a preliminary plat, we have the UDO in front of us. We look through these things to tell us exactly what to do. And when we have a PDD, it's whatever the PDD's rules are, and it has an ordinance and it has a master plan. And given that we haven't even had, you know, the master plan to even view it before we're approving a preliminary plat against it, I find that very difficult to do. I don't think the timing for doing that is correct. I understand that we could say that we would just say upon approval of it, that it would be okay, but for me that's kind of like pencil whipping something that is a major instruction guide in what we're supposed to approve for something like a planned development district. So that is my biggest gripe with the whole process of even approving this tonight.
Ms. Sansbury?
I agree with Ben 100% that we need to have the experts study this. They finally got it late this afternoon. I respect their opinion. For us to vote on it within several hours of getting the documents, I think would be not good judgment on our part. But the main reason that I disapprove of this is because I've been on this board for 4 years, and I have never had as many comments and concerns as I have had from this particular plat. And the growth, people have spoken out, they have emailed me, they have called me, they have had very legitimate reasons. There's more to preliminary plat than the list that we have to check off. There's a whole lot more. There are 1,500 homes in this complex, and there are a lot more things that these people worry about than what is on this list. And we're not discussing those. We're not discussing the schools. We're not discussing the parking and the traffic. I mean, if you go up there during the peak hours, those poor people cannot get out. They can't go north. They can't go south. And here we are adding another 300 and some people to that mix. It's not fair. And the people are speaking out, and they are asking to be listened to. And if we just check off this list and say, go on with it, we're not doing our job. Our job is to listen to the people, like Ms. Henson said, and I have listened, and my vote definitely will be against this. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, May I have just one
Mr.
point?
Burns.
Yes. And this is just, I believe the staff had issued a recommendation to approve subject to TRC comments and regardless of, how the vote concludes. One item we would like to add to those conditions, our Public Works Director made it known that the proposed roads within this preliminary plat are envisioned being public roads, county-maintained roads, and it is his recommendation that since this is associated with a land use master plan change, that those should actually be in fact private roads and not subject to county maintenance and tax dollars used to maintain those because they weren't originally contemplated. So I would just ask, regardless of how the vote is, concludes, that that item be added to the TRC comments in the original motion.
Ms. Sainsbury.
Let me make one question, Rox, regarding that. Okay, when the residents of Walnut start using the back roads to get to 75, and those are county roads, and they're destroying county roads, who's gonna fix that?
So if the county, if there is damage or excessive maintenance needed to county roads, the county will pay for those improvements to be made.
'Cause that's what's happening now, because they can't get out just to 521. They're going the back way. They're destroying a little community back there called Hancock, and they're just trying to get out because they're so trapped in there. It's very, very unfortunate.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make the,
Levine.
amendments to the motion to approve in case this is to move forward. Make an amendment to approve subject to the conditions that we amend, that the planning department has added, plus that the roads used in this section are considered private instead of public.
The amendment is to approve subject to the conditions of the staff and TRC, and that the roads in this particular part of the subdivision
Yes.
be private.
Yes.
And not part of the county system. Okay. All right, we'll vote on the amendment first. Pardon me?
I need a second.
Chairman, you're going to need a second for the motion to approve.
Got a motion for the amendment that you heard. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second for the amendment. Any comments on the amendment?
I'd like to make one.
Yes, sir.
These PDDs, this, we're moving fast track, but slow track is 20, 30 years ago when this started. And I'm impressed that staff is at least looking into a way to try to control this. We're between a rock and a hard place sitting here.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett.
And I love the way the staff does. They're very on it, and I appreciate that.
Okay, we have an amendment to the motion to approve, subject to the conditions of the staff and TRC that are listed, and the fact that the roads in this particular part of the subdivision be private roads, not county maintained roads. Any discussion? Could we have a roll call vote, Michael, please?
Lydia Hatfield, Tommy Dabney, Sheila Henson,
Approved.
Ben Levine,
Approve.
Jim Barnett,
Approve.
Rosa Sansberry,
Against.
Charles Dees.
Or the amendment to the motion passes by a vote of 4-1. Now we will vote on the motion itself, the main motion as amended.
Mr. Chairman, if I can make a point of discussion before the vote, a quick one.
Yes, please.
Just that the addition of the roads to being private roads as opposed to public roads will be added to the expenses of the HOA of the neighborhood, given that that's the nature of roads being private instead of public. Just to keep that in mind, that is now an added cost to the HOA of this development.
All right, we have a motion to approve as amended. Motion by Mr. Barnett, second by Mr. Levine. All in favor of the motion as amended? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Lydia Hatfield, Tommy Dabney, Sheila Henson,
I'm against, I'm sorry.
Ben Levine,
Against?
Jim Barnett,
Against.
Rosa Stansberry,
Against.
and Charles Eads.
Against. The motion to approve failed by a vote of 5-0. Excuse me. What is 5? Yeah. The next item is RZ 020-0567, Robbie Steen, rezoning 2.004 acre parcel of land, rural neighborhood district to rural business district. Mr. Teft.
Good evening again. Robert Teft, Lancaster County Planning Department. The proposal again is to rezone a 2.004 acre parcel of land from rural neighborhood district to rural business district. It is located on the west side of Henry Harris Road, approximately 800 feet south of Stacy Howie Road. Now, as to where this is, you can see on the location map here, that is clearly not a 2-acre parcel. What has occurred is on the parcel on the west side of Henry Harris Road, there has been a minor subdivision approved to carve out this 2-ish acre parcel of land, which sits essentially at what is more or less the northeast corner of that parcel on the west side of the road. Hopefully that's clear. So the majority of this is parcel that's highlighted in white is not under consideration. It is merely the 2 acres, kind of at the northernmost tip of all of it, if you will, which again is that singular piece there. As you can see the existing building on the property, they're just at the bottom of the screen. I'll draw back here. Again, current zoning is rural neighborhood, proposed zoning is rural business. I'm sorry, the location photos here. The photo on the left is looking west towards the subject property. And again, then looking north along Henry Harris. Looking southwest on the left towards the adjacent parcel of which this is technically still a part of, but they do have approval to subdivide already. And then looking southeast, which is across Henry Harris Road in the photograph on the right. The subject property is generally surrounded by other properties zoned RN district, rural neighborhood district. The surrounding area, as well as virtually all of Henry Harris Road, is residentially zoned. In fact, the only properties on the entirety of Henry Harris Road that are zoned commercially there are non-residentially, and there are 3 of them at the very northern terminus where it terminates into Marvin Road. Other than that, there is not all the other properties are zoned residential. There's not another non-residential property on Henry Harris Road. The nearest property zoned rural business is approximately 10.6 miles to the south of this one. Again, that is actually on 521. I believe it is at, I can't remember the intersection there, it's on 521. The rural business district would introduce commercial zoning in an area that is currently devoid of any commercial zoning, and do so in a manner that is contrary, or would be contrary to the proposed RUB district itself, as it would not be at a rural crossroads along a rural highway, but rather in the middle of a heavily residential rural neighborhood. Future land use category of the property's neighborhood mixed use. By extension, the community type is walkable neighborhood per our comprehensive plan. This category is extended across nearly the entirety of the northern half of the Panhandle. This encompasses not only the entire area of Henry Harris Road, but also the most heavily developed portion of 521, as well as numerous residential and commercial developments. This future land use category and community type can be found to be compatible with most zoning districts in the county. including the proposed RUB district. However, while the district can be found to be compatible, by no means should this infer that it is appropriate or compatible with surrounding lands and uses thereupon. As I mentioned previously, the only non-residential zoning on Henry Harris is at its northern terminus. Everything surrounding this property is residentially zoned. As such, staff cannot find this request to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. I would note that we have received a few citizen comments regarding this project. As with the prior item there, we've listed the names of those individuals and one entity. As we're on the screen there, there's only 5 in total. All were comments against this proposal. And staff does recommend denial of this application. Available if you have any questions.
Questions? Thank you, sir. Is the applicant here?
Yes, yes.
You would come forward, give your name and address for the record, please.
Robbie Steen, 8749 Henry Harris Road in Indian Land. I've got a few handouts. It's just a brief 2 or 3 page kind of overview of picture of what I'm doing. I don't know if is it acceptable to pass it out to you?
You would give them to the young lady at the end.
And then I can tell you. Just let me.
Right, sir.
Yeah, just to give you an overview, basically, we're a family-owned and operated business, and we've been in business for a little over 40 years. It's electric golf cart motors. I know some people in the community know us through electric drag racing, but that's clearly at Darlington Dragway is to promote our business. We don't sell racing golf carts or do anything. This is all promotional vehicles that we use. We have the Guinness World Record and stuff. So, but basically, as far as traffic-wise, 98% of our business comes in and out on UPS or FedEx. And UPS and FedEx travel Henry Harris Road every day. And then, like I said, it's just a family-owned and operated business. It's something that we're currently at 10590 Tillman Steen Road, which is next to Camp Cox. I don't know if y'all familiar with that. And we've been there for 58 years, business for 43, 44 years. And so basically, make a long story short, I got twin boys that want to come into the business, and so we both will, build a house on our property as they get older and stuff. And so, I was trying to get a new shop, a nice shop, more or less something, they're the 3rd generation in the business, so that, their kids or grandkids would have something to, go up in. So that's, that's the deal. I understand people's concerns about stuff like that, and I respect everybody's concerns. I'll tell you that, there'll be nothing stored outside, and then, like we have, all of our motors are tested before they're shipped out, and we got a dyno machine. All of our equipment we made ourselves. This is a specialized industry. We're one of about probably 2 or 3 in the country that does this particular niche. We found a niche. But even if, whenever we test these electric motors on dyno machines, you can be outside the building, you won't hear anything. I mean, they're quiet, they're electric motors. And like I said, we wouldn't store anything outside. We believe in, keeping a place nice. I've got, basically the building, the front part would be used for a golf cart museum. I've got 16 drag racing golf carts, from jet-powered cars to stuff. So they would be up front as a way for people in the community to come see, you know, ask you about the electric's coming in the country. You know, it's not going to take over, but it's coming. So basically what we're looking at, with a nice facility, with a showroom where people could come in, then we could set aside through our website, say 1 day a month, to let church groups, schools and stuff sign up. We'd set aside a day where these people could come in. We would show them, you know, electric vehicles, tell them about, you know, how things work. Just, you know, a way of giving back to the community and stuff. And I know a lot of people, you know, think all that stuff's corny and stuff, but, you know, we've been in the county, love Indian land, county, you know, so I don't want to do anything that would, you know, hurt the county or anything like that. So, but again, I can understand people's concerns. Nobody likes change. But there again, even whenever y'all was talking about these, you know, housing developments, whenever you look at it, we're fortunate. We live in an area people's trying to come here. We could be in an area people's fleeing. And whenever you look at all these neighborhoods and stuff, and like I said, I understand people's concerns, but I've been on this property, excuse me, 38 years this September 25th. But if it wasn't for change, majority of people, especially in Indian land, wouldn't have a house or wouldn't have land that developers built to build a house. You know, they come in. So it's one of those things, you know, you want to do what's right and all, but in a situation like ours, which is probably a little bit different, I have no issue whatsoever if the planning commission or somebody says, okay, you know, you say it's going to be a family and stuff, and we don't want a gas station coming up, we don't want whatever coming up. I have no problems whatsoever with any type of restrictions or something that y'all would feel necessary to you know, say this is what it could be used for, you know. And I've had, just talking about the land deal, I've had multiple occasions people approach me about buying the property. I don't want to sell the property, don't plan on selling the property. I love where I'm at, my boys, my family. So I don't even have an issue with, okay, it's done like this, and if you sell the property, that zoning goes away. It doesn't matter, because, you know, I plan on being there, my family's gonna be there, so, but again, I can understand people's concern and respect it and all, and, I'll ask any, you know, answer any questions, you know, whatever you got for me.
Levine?
Just one question. Obviously, there's some business parks around in the area. I'm not sure where you're currently running your business from, but I would imagine the whole idea of using this section is because it's land you own and...
Right, and quite frankly, I couldn't afford, well, at the business we're at now, where the business is now, like I said, we've been there for 58 years, moved there when I was 6 weeks old. My dad bought the land that the property's on, to tell you how long, for $100 for the acre. So in '76, we built the business. It was C.D. Steen's son. My father's name's Carson Steen. And he worked at the mill. And so me and my brother worked part-time while we was in school. 1981, 80 I graduated, in 79 and 80 I worked at Springs Mills, and in 81 we had enough business to go full-time. So when we went in full-time, it was turned into Indian Land Machine Shop. We did stuff for all the Springs Mills, and then when Ross Perot said that giant sucking sound would be your jobs, well, he wasn't kidding. So we got into a lot of research and development for various companies, designing products. We got several patents, and then about 20 years ago, you know, you always look for that niche. I mean, you don't sell oranges right beside somebody else's orange stand. So you got to, through a good friend of ours, was living in, he's passed away now, Don Jenkins up here in Indian. We actually got into modifying golf cart motors as just, we'd done several electric vehicles for several different companies and stuff, electric lawnmowers for John Deere and stuff. But so we developed, worked on a motor, which is taking the existing motor and just basically going in it and doing tweaks and stuff to it. And that's where it kind of started, and it went for a few years like that, and then we did a website, and then it just took off. So where it is now, you know, that's all we do day in, day out is motors. We don't work on golf carts. We don't put batteries in. We don't change. In other words, the motors are 38 to 40 pounds. They're shipped in FedEx, UPS. We unbox them, tear them down, rebuild them, put them on a dyno. Of course, they're painted our schemes and colors and stuff, and then they're going right back out. So that's basically, you know, what we do. And I've had some people say, well, you know, where you at now? We're a 1 acre. We got a shop, a little U-shaped shop. It's 1 acre. And they say, well, you know, we're in between housing developments. And they say, well, you know, you're grandfathered in because you've been so long. So as long as you say if you want to put a new building up, well, feasibly, I'd have to take all the equipment out and store it somewhere, shut the shop down for 2, 3, 4 months, tear the buildings down, build a new building. It's just not feasible, you know. So, and then like I said, as far as I realize there's property up and down 521 or whatever where you could, you know, but feasible, it's not feasible for us dollar-wise, you know. But anyway, I appreciate your consideration, and if you don't have any other questions, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Steen.
All right, thank you all.
Staff have anything to add? At this time, we will consider ourselves in public hearing, and no one is signed to speak to this, so we will consider ourselves out of public hearing. Commissioners, you have before you rezoning 020-0567, Robbie Steen, rezoning of 2.004 acre parcel of land from rural neighborhood to rural business. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, to have a motion, I'm going to make a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Mr. Levine. Do I have a second?
I second.
And a second from Mr. Barnett. Any discussion?
Did I understand, does the, planning commission, department approve this, or did he?
They recommend against.
They recommended denial.
Denial, okay, I'm just wondering, okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have discussion.
Mr. Levine, go ahead.
Yeah, this for me is, I have a decision, but you know, the whole gist of it is tough because, you know, the applicant is the kind of person who you wish would be one of the only people opening businesses around the area, because they are from the area, they care about the area, they've lived here for a long time. It's just unfortunate that in the area where the property happens to be, it's not even a matter of the applicant's use of this property and what they choose to do. It's that it opens a can of worms of rezoning for business in an area that is all neighborhood. And as soon as you have one, which I would think probably would be contested as spot zoning, it just opens the door for other businesses to other properties around to change to business. And so it's not like I'm even against the use that the applicant wants to have. It's just what change it creates for the area.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Anyone else?
And this is his own personal property?
Okay. Hearing nothing further, we have a motion on the floor to approve. Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Debbie Hatfield, Tommy Dabney, Sheila Henson,
Approve.
Ben Levine,
Against.
Jim Barnett,
Against.
Brenda Stansberry,
Against.
Charles D.
Or motion to approve fails by a vote of 3 to 2. Next item on the agenda is RZ 020-0748, Travis Craig, Duke Energy. Mr. Ted.
Good evening once again. Robert Teft, Lancaster County Planning Department. This is indeed rezoning. There we go. Request to rezone a 152.82 acre parcel of land along Old Hickory Road from Rural Neighborhood District to Agricultural Residential District. It is located at the east and west sides of Old Hickory Road, the intersection of West and North Corner Road. It is shown here on the location map. Again, there's both sides, both parcels highlighted in yellow. It's all the same piece of property, just on two sides of the street. Let's see here. Photos here on the left-hand side is looking south the intersection of Old Hickory and West North Corner Road. On the right, looking west toward the property. Again, here looking southeast across Old Hickory Road on the left, and then looking north across Old Hickory on the right. Excuse me. All right, notes here. UDO Chapter 2.3 describes the requested Agricultural Residential District, or AR District, as a district in which the principal uses of the land are restricted due to a lack of available utilities, unsuitable soil types, steep slopes, or for the protection of prime agricultural lands. There is no evidence that the subject property meets that description of the requested zoning district. Further, the proposed AR district is inconsistent with what is in the surrounding area, comprised of residential districts such as the RN district, LDR, and the MDR districts. With regards to our adopted comprehensive plan, the future land use category and community type are both rural living. This future land use category and community type extend across both, well, across the overwhelming majority of the county as a whole. To give you an idea of what that means, essentially it's the entirety of the town of Van Wyck, areas outside of the towns of Heath Springs, Kershaw, the very northeast and southwest corners of the county, and encompassing all of the southern panhandle. Because of this, the rural living future land use category and the community type are by their very nature intended to be compatible with numerous zoning districts, including the proposed AR district. While it can be found to be compatible with the rural living future land use category and community type, by no means should this infer that it is appropriate or compatible with surrounding lands, the uses thereupon, or those uses that will be developed according to current zoning. As such, staff cannot make a positive finding of consistency with regards to this request in the comprehensive plan. As with our other items tonight, we have received several citizen comments. Again, on the screen, we've identified the names of those who have provided those. I believe each one of these has been in opposition to this request, and those all have been provided to you in your packets as well. Staff is recommending the denial of this application, and I'm available if you have any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Teff?
Just one quick one of the recommendation for denial, your thoughts on the property and why the planning department is recommending denial.
Why it's recommended denial? Inconsistency with surrounding land uses. The zoning district does not appear to meet, the standards for the district do not appear to be consistent with the land, and it doesn't appear to be consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Thank you.
Ms. Sainsbury?
Would the Duke Energy use the entire 152 acres for the solar farm, or would they just use
More or less, that's my understanding, yes.
the entire 152?
I mean, there may be portions of it that based on geometry they can't fit things into, but I think the intent is to use as much as possible. But I don't want anything specific on that. The applicant might be able to provide better clarification on that.
Okay, thank you.
Is the applicant available? If you would, give your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Travis Gregg. I'm based out of 400 South Tryon, Charlotte, North Carolina. I appreciate you guys taking the time to hear me out today. For Duke's goal for the next 5 years is to double our renewable capacity from 14% to 28%. This project plays a role in that process. This project has been in our pipeline for quite some time. It's a good piece of land. We understand that it is in conflict with outside zoned areas. We, as a team, work really well with counties to make sure that proper vegetative buffers are in place to quell any kind of concerns about view shed. We take a pretty big, important role within the county with our contractors to do local job fairs. We understand that solar is a relatively new technology. There's a great opportunity for it to come to Lancaster County. Obviously there's very valid concerns that we are willing to dive into and address today. So I welcome your thoughts and concerns, welcome the crowd as well. We can address those. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we will consider ourselves in public hearing on RZ 020-0748, rezoning of 152.82 acre parcel of land on Old Hickory Road. As I call your name, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and you will have up to 3 minutes to make your comments to the Planning Commission. Marion Sales.
I'm Marion Sales. My property is at 3497 Old Hickory Road in Lancaster, South Carolina. And it is Lancaster, not Lancaster. Gotta be a local. Okay. My property is right beside where Mr. Yoder's property is. I do not want a solar farm right beside my property. I've done some intense research here of late, trying to investigate any kind of solar farm there is, any kind of the manufacture of the panels, the cleaning of the panels, the runoff of the cleaning solutions used in the panels that will be used on the property. Also the fact we have an intense number of deer. We have a lot of wild animals. The wild boar also is there. So these are God's given animals, and they're going to destroy some of these panels. That's just going to be a given. With the breakdown of these materials, we are going to pollute the soil. There are 2 ponds on these properties. On each side of the road, there's a pond on each. There's also a stream. This will also be contaminated. This is something I don't want to see, and I don't want anyone else to ever have to endure this. We're trying to keep our land and our country clean. We do not want pollution. This will stop anything from growing. This will pollute forever. You can't just dig up the dirt and move it. I also did some research on some prior Duke Power contracts, and some of them are not very good. And I wasn't pleased with how they tried to address some of the issues. With all due respect to Duke Power, yes, I do love having electricity, but I do not want to have this solar panel farm right beside my property. The gentleman in question that owns this property does not live at this location. So he will not be doing anything to get the results of seeing everything there except for monetarily. And I don't want to see this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. George David.
I never knew about this rezoning until less than a week ago. This lady came to my house, the one who lives right down from me and who raises these small ponies and other smaller animals, says, do you know what they're going to do? They're going to have all of these panels, and they're going to be having to clear the grass and everything each year and so forth with chemicals. I says, well, so what? He says, well, that's going to make things, that's going to put us back into a problem that we may have to, if we have any animals, and they have to, we'll have to go someplace else. And so I questioned her about what she did and so forth, and finally found out that she raised these small horses. And so I said, well, I'm not so sure that I'd like for people to be poisoning grass and so forth. I was contacted 10 to 20 years ago to put, I have maybe 200-300 acres of land, and they were thinking about putting panels on my property. And so it seemed like okay, because $750 an acre a year, I think that was. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that was it. And then they said after a while, maybe we could increase that a little bit. So I was sort of for that. My children were not. And they helped us a whole lot by getting us knocked out of the loop. And I never ever contacted him anymore. And so that was essentially it. This lady contacted me, and I'm not in favor of anybody doing anything like putting any kind of contamination of the land itself, and especially if it's poison. And, you know, I think that mainly Springs had that basic problem of, you know, dying, and the dyes apparently did cause some problems. And I think that the farmers can cause a problem too. So I'm not so sure what can be done about that. But that's essentially it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Susan David.
Hello, my name is Susan David, and I have lived at 3711 Dr. David Road since 1969, when I was 9 years old. We moved to Lancaster from Charleston. I have lived there for most of the time, except for about 6 to 8 years when I was away living in Charleston and Columbia, getting my education. I am against the development of these solar panels, as they are a huge eyesore, and I feel like our local neighbors and all of the nearby neighbors will not agree with the solar panels because of what they look like. Every inch of the acreage is taken for the placement of a panel. I live on a rather large farm. It is almost 300 acres, and our land contains a 2 to 3 acre lake. There are also 2 other small ponds beside it, and there is the Waxhaw Creek to consider at the back of the property, which borders our property, and all of these waterways will be affected by the chemicals that are being used. Also, on the side of our property, as you face the property between our farm and Mr. Paul Huck's farm, he raises cows, and he uses our creek right there. It's a long creek for his cows to drink. There are questions about these chemicals affecting our animals, and over the years we have raised Charolais cattle, Angus cattle, and we have done ostrich farming, and we are presently interested in doing hemp farming. My brother has done some research, and we have had a soil scientist come and test our soil, and our soil is perfect for growing hemp. And I just feel like Bobby Yoder could make so much more money if he would do something like plant grapes. He could go into the wine industry, as so many farms are planting vineyards now. There are many co-ops in North Carolina. And I just feel like the land is being affected by the animals. And we presently have horses. We have invested $200,000 in one of our horse barns, and we have the opportunity to raise horses and show horses and lease horses, you know, out to for rent. And everything that we have and hold dear on our farm will be affected by the chemicals of the solar panels, and it will greatly decrease the value of our property. We would never be able to sell with so many solar panels, and we have been contacted by 2 solar panel companies in the last 5 years, and we turned both of them down. And I'm against the development of all of the property in the area. We are one of the last large farms in the northern corner of the county, and all of that is being overdeveloped. And it is just like we step outside of North Corner Road, onto North Corner Road, and we are just right in downtown Charlotte. And I just hate it so bad. I hate to see the beauty of the area destroyed.
Okay.
It is a totally different area from what I saw growing up as a child. Those long rolling hills on 521 and all the horse farms.
David, if you could finish up, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bob Yoder.
I'm Bob Yoder. I live at 8087 Bamwank Road. This is my farm. I've owned this farm personally since 1973. Family has owned it since 1964, I think, 65. We have farmed this piece of property ever since then, and it's still farming this piece of property. I've been approached by many people wanting to buy it for houses, and I'm not for that. And I've visited many solar farms in the last 4 years. This is how long I've been researching this, to see where they're put, how they get along with the housing developments and businesses around, and 99% of them are real nice. These fly-by-night companies that come in and offer everybody put up a solar farm, no way. I would stay strictly with Duke. They know they're going to be here. They're going to take care of us, and this piece of property is suited for it. They have a substation on it, have transmission lines across it. It will not be wall-to-wall solar panels. I think you have a packet. It will not be wall-to-wall solar panels. But I'm hearing about growing hemp and all that. If I was a young man, I probably would be try to look into growing hemp. I do not want houses on my property. I still own this property. It will be leased to Duke, and the way their plan works, at the end of their lease, Duke has to remove every panel on the thing and return the property back to where it was the day they start. I'm getting on up into years, and there's no way in the world I can make the kind of money that I can from anything else and still own this property from a solar farm. I know people's going to be against it, but people, this is a thing of the future. You're going to have power somewhere, and everybody wants to put it somewhere besides where they're at, but yet they want power to turn on their lights and stuff. I didn't want that big 500, 600 acre housing development right behind me. I could have sold it to them, put houses on it. Don't want it. As far as animals, this thing will be completely surrounded by a wire link fence, so you're not worried, you're not gonna have animals in there. So the housing development will do more harm to the wildlife than this project. I won't go into any more, but I wish you'd approve this. I mean, I've worked this land for 40 years, and it's hard work to make a living farming. I'm at the stage with grandchildren and everything, I want to see them have money to go to college, and that's my sole purpose right now, to put them through school. And I appreciate it if y'all would vote for this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Angela Ellsbury.
Yes, I'm located at 3135 Old Hickory Road.
You would state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Angela Ellsbury. If you go down North Corner Road off of 521, Dr. David is to the right. He will be very affected by these solar panels because they will be very unsightly. The value of his land will never be the same. He's been a surgeon in our community for many years. He is invested with his children, just like Mr. Yoder. He doesn't deserve that. Rosa Sansbury and her husband are real estate agents. They have sold properties to people who expect to have a nice home when they're driving home. They don't want to look at 150 acres of solar panels. You've got Steve Colt behind there that has, you know, a couple hundred acres or whatever. He will be affected. Of course, me. I'm in front on Old Hickory Road. I have 160 acres right across from where Lennar is going, where they have invested. They bought that tract of land for over $1 million. And of course, you know, I'm not totally into tract homes, but I think that they will try to, they don't know if they're gonna make a park there where the nice pond is or what they're gonna do, but I think it's workable to make it look nice. The problem is the solar panel farm would be adjacent next to them and to me. We have a stream that runs between us, and you know, I don't care what they say, they will spray it. They're not gonna hire people to come over and mow. You know, they're gonna spray it with toxic chemicals, and it's gonna run right down in that stream on both sides of Lennar and me, and down in their pond, and it's just, you know, it's just toxic. Furthermore, the solar panels, they just look terrible, and they, you know, right now it may be the going thing, but as time goes, they're gonna become obsolete because these great big panels, they'll have little small things, it'll be different. And, you know, you're looking at 20 years. Well, look at what that land could be for the county in 20 years. I mean, look at the tax base from nice homes. I mean, it's one of the nicest areas in the whole county. You've got 521 there, it's growing, you've got the new schools going in. You know, if we're gonna bring something in, let's bring in some families, let's bring in people who are educated, who can bring something to our community. Not a solar panel farm that is really negligible as to what it brings to people. So what are we gonna get, a $20 deduction off our electric bill? Well, that's not what we want. We want the proper growth for this community. We want people to drive to their home and not have to look at something like that that's basically permanent. And what happens to the land after it's been sprayed for 20 years? It's dead. It's not even living anymore. Lennar was allowed to come in and do their thing. It's residential. The area is residential. Let's keep it that way. You know, if you want to put industrial and solar panels and things like that, put it somewhere else. Put it where, you know, behind a railroad track or over in an area where, you know, those types of things go, but don't ruin a whole community with so much potential with something like that. I mean, when you think about it, that whole corridor, how do people go in? They go in generally down North Corner Road. And, you know, all these subdivisions, what's the one back, River Chase? You know, people come in, they're going back to River Chase. They're going here and there, and, you know, it's just not the thing to do there. And I would hope that y'all would really look at this because it is a huge impact on everybody's land values, everybody. And we just need the proper planning. We need proper planning for this area. So I hope y'all will think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all that is signed to speak to this matter, so we will consider ourselves out of public hearing. Commissioners, you have before you RZ 020-0748, rezoning of 152.82 acre parcel of land on Old Hickory Road. And as a reminder, we are in the process. This is a rezoning request, and we, under state law, do not have an opportunity to say what goes on the property. We're being asked to rezone the property to agricultural residential. So do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, to have a motion on the table, I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve from Mr. Levine.
Second.
Have a second from Mr. Barnett. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll open the discussion if that's okay.
Mr. Levine?
It's very similar, a very similar stance of just, we have zoning in the county, we have a particular type of zoning, and to change a zoning to something that's inconsistent with the area is just really not the best practice of a way to approach. There are some areas in the county that I think would be geared towards agricultural residential. I think this section, most recently being turned around to high density residential is not necessarily the path that things were going to go with this section. It may be great from an opportunity of how the infrastructure is set up to use this as a solar farm, but I don't believe that it is correct to change the type of the classification of zoning that we have in this area, given the lack of similar use around that.
Okay. Ms. Sandberg?
I just wanted to mention that this is the second go-around for this particular area to have a solar farm, and the community spoke out then, and I think they're speaking out now. They don't want it in their net backyard, and I agree it's not the place. It's being developed in a nice way, and we need to realize that the zoning is there for a reason, and we need to respect that.
What else?
Chairman.
Yes, Ms. Hanson.
The only thing I would like to say is that, I see both sides of the equation. I do feel like when somebody has property, especially when it's that many acres and they should be able to, at one time, I know y'all remember a long time ago, a person did what they wanted to do with their property. It's their property, and you pay taxes on it, and you should be allowed to do what you want to with it. And then I can see the other side of the coin, that it affects a lot of people whenever you do that. Just to set my record straight, I've been by many solar farms and really checked them out because I wanted to see what it was about. I've never seen one that I thought looked bad. I mean, I've never went by there and saw, oh my Lord, I don't want to be next to that. I've never seen that. In fact, I've gone by them and I've thought, well, God, they don't look so bad. What's everybody talking about? So, but I can see how some people might not like it. This is a very hard decision, and when you're sitting on the commission like we are, and we definitely want to please the people of Lancaster County, and sometimes it's very hard to make those decisions. So I just, so I guess that's what we're going to do, and I just want everybody to understand that that I don't think anybody up here hates anything or, but we try to do what's best for everybody. And, to take the whole thing and do what we think is best. I just wanted to make that clear and say that.
Thank you, Ms. Henson. Anyone else? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please? The motion to approve has been made by Mr. Levine, and seconded by Mr. Barnett.
Hatfield, Tommy Dabney, Sheila Henson,
I'm gonna vote to approve.
Ben Levine,
Against?
Tim Barnett,
Against?
Rosa Sansberry,
Against.
and Charles Eads.
Against. The motion to approve failed by a vote of 4-1. And this will go to county council for further consideration. You will be notified when that will be heard with county council. And the same goes for the Steen property also. It will be heard again by county council, and you'll be notified of that meeting. Okay. Ma'am, you had your opportunity to speak.
I just wanted to ask you a question about the letters that people receive informing us of the rezoning, because I know Lenore did not get a letter. Did you get a letter? Because there are other people right beside there that.
Mr. Burns, you can answer to that.
Sure. So abutting property owners would all receive a letter. That's why we also advertise in the newspaper as well as post the site to make people aware of the case. We had a pretty healthy level of public feedback before this meeting, so we feel like the message got out, but that's how mail notice is structured.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Okay. The next item on the agenda is new business. We have an overview of next month's agenda. Mr. Burns.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. It should be a relatively light agenda for next month with just one case that'll come before you, at least at present. We don't anticipate any additional cases being added to the agenda, so it should be a brief one, which will be a nice reprieve.
Okay. Anything else?
At a record, we are not having a workshop.
Anything from our?
That is correct. That is correct, Mr. Dabney, or Mr. Barnett. Thank you. We will not have a workshop in June for the one case.
Still canceling the workshop.
Yes, that is correct.
When are we going to start having workshops again?
We'll speak with the administration when council wishes to reopen the non-essential public meetings.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could add two more things.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Just want to alert you, we recently learned there, again, because of the air of caution, there will not be a board member of the year award dinner in June, again, for the same reasons why we won't do the workshop. It's not an essential function, so while the award will still be made, it will just not be an award dinner, so just wanted to make everyone aware of that. Also, we had some sad news today that Mr. Dabney is stepping down from the Planning Commission. Some of you may already be aware of that, but for reasons we're not aware, he's decided to step down. So there will be a new Planning Commissioner appointed in District 5. So just wanted to make you aware of those two items.
Thank you. And is anything else that we know of that needs to come in? We want to thank each of you for being here with us this afternoon. And I'm sorry I didn't do it earlier because I didn't see him too much tonight. Mr. Willis is back there, our county administrator. And we thank staff for the work that they've done on all this stuff. So do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
A second.
Motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor? Bye. We are now adjourned. Thank you.